So the Big Willie challenge, you've probably seen on social media. Will Smith has posted a picture of himself coming out of the pandemic in his self-proclaimed words, "I'm in the worst shape of my life." And he's posted a picture of himself in boxers, with his belly protruding and looking pretty out of shape. But what he's done to spin it in a great positive and a good rally to everyone in the world is to encourage other people to do the same and set themselves a target for 12 weeks, get into the shape of their lives and not have a trainer. So you've seen a lot of people posting pictures of themselves, accepting the challenge and doing something amazing. So getting into the shape of their lives and really taking charge of their health coming out of the pandemic. So have you guys seen it? And what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram. I think it's he seems to have connected, as he does, Will Smith, really well with his audience, and has clearly generated a lot of kind of hype and excitement around it, which I think is brilliant, as you said, in terms of getting people to focus more on their health and start making positive steps. I guess the thing is now is making sure that those people can act on that initial motivation or inspiration and lock it into something that can help them not only commit to it for the next 12 weeks, but then for time beyond that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great message, and I think it can be a great ambassador to get people moving in the right direction. And I think the message that he's trying to spread is very empowering too, to try to do it without a trainer, without a coach. But again, I think Will Smith has also come from he's been quite educated. He understands the process. He's got in shape before. He's been in shape. He's been in shape in the past, meaning that his path to getting in shape again will be much easier compared to someone who hasn't. But I think if obviously he can get a good community going, he can get people posting their pictures, without shame, without guilt, etc. I think it's a fantastic way to get people moving in the right direction post-pandemic. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens within that 12 weeks. But as Ed just touched on, what's going to really matter is what can these people do after that 12-week period, and do they have the tools to actually know how to stay in shape for life, which is one of the big core concepts that we talk about here at R&T.
So let's start off by just getting into the shape and discussing briefly what the journey is for that. We've got a lot of people at the moment who are on that strive to get into the shape of their life. It can obviously feel quite overwhelming once you're at the start of that, the bottom of the mountain, trying to climb to the top. What are some of the things? Let's discuss some of the key aspects, and let's take as a consideration that the why is already locked in. They've had some sort of trigger moment. They know why they're doing this journey beyond just the physical benefit. What are the initial steps that we need to take with regards to locking in the 3 S's, getting precursors in place, decision fatigue, etc.? Maybe we'll tackle one topic each.
So I think the first thing I'd be looking at is just having an idea of what you want to be doing on a consistent basis. So it can be really easy to be like, I want to eat less or move more, whatever it is, but putting that actually into quantifiable things. So having a plan in place is going to be massive. So whether that is, I want to resistance train 3 times a week, I'm going to, in addition to that, do 2 cardio sessions a week. For my food, I'm going to have this structure, whether that is calories, it's a meal plan. It could be calorie and macro targets, whether it's just some guidelines or rules, but it's having quantifiable things in place. So you just have that structure, so you know whether you are sticking to it or you're not. And then you also have something that you can adapt if you need to increase your rate of progress, if you need to pull things back, whatever it is. But just making sure there's something solid in place that you can then actually not only hold yourself accountable to, but adapt as needed.
On top of that, I would also, again, there's the deadline for this specific scenario is already going to be set, which is 12 weeks. But even if it wasn't 12 weeks, setting a deadline, I think can be extremely useful just to keep the eyes on the prize, and that to sort of keep that driven focus that most people do need throughout their fat loss phase or process phase, whatever you want to call it. So yes, as Ed touched on, having those fundamentals in place with regards to your activity, I would then also take nutrition into consideration, which is it's going to be one of the most powerful tools anyone can have at their disposal when it comes to especially getting things going. Now, I think many people make the mistake of just cutting their calories way too fast, or just trying to overly restrict, whether that's cutting out carbohydrates, whether that's doing keto, whether that's doing intermittent fasting, whatever dietary protocol that you think is going to allow you to lose body fat quickly is probably the wrong way to go there. So there are a couple ways you can do this. You can either track what you have currently been eating and just track it, and don't try to eat less than normal. Just eat as you normally would. Start taking notes of how much you're actually eating, and then calculate your total amounts and just see, okay, I'm actually eating this much. And then you can either make a 300-400 calorie reduction from that, or you could just simply take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by, say, 10 to 12. And that can literally be your starting calories. To work out your protein, just 1 gram per pound, let's go 1 gram, 0.5 grams per pound for fat, and then the rest can be carbohydrates, or whatever formula you want to use. But you just need something to sort of get you going that is going to put you in an energy deficit that is also going to be hitting your protein target. But if it would be really, really simple. I know it can be a lot more complicated for others, but that's the sort of way I would approach the nutrition side of things. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so we've got keep nutrition basic, get into a calorie deficit, train 3 to 4 days a week, walk 8 to 10,000 steps a day, sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, drink 3 to 4 liters of water a day. That's essentially your transformation checklist, the sort of core 5 non-negotiables you need to have locked in your day. Then the big ask becomes, how do you actually get the wheels in motion? How do you actually turn this strategy that you have of these five non-negotiables into something which you can integrate into your life? And I think this is where creating a structure into your day can go a long way. Understanding when you're going to do what in your days and your weeks, understanding what strategies you're going to use in different scenarios, whether with work, with the family, social occasions, etc. And then what sort of systems you're going to have in place to allow all these things to happen a lot easier. For example, building in precursors into your day, which could be something like, when I get home, when I finish work at 5, I will go to the gym. Or when I wake up in the morning, I'll have my gym clothes by my bed so I can get straight into it, or whatever they may be. Finding the different anchor points in your day and the turning points in your day where you can add a positive habit to, can make executing the list a lot easier. And then coupled with that, when you build a routine, when you build these systems in place, you start limiting decision fatigue. And I think so many of us are sort of riddled with too many minor decisions in our day. If we can just eliminate a lot of these menial thinking processes, such as nutrition, such as when you're going to do what in your day, what you're going to wear each day, these sorts of things. And I think it's routine, nutrition, and your clothing tend to be the ones that zap the most energy. If you can start automating some of these processes and make it a little bit more streamlined, you'll find that the bandwidth on executing this checklist every day becomes a lot less, and you have more bandwidth for the things that do matter in your life. So that can help with just getting the flywheel in motion, just getting things moving, building some of that early momentum, which is often the hardest thing to do, just getting that momentum building. Because once it builds, it's very easy to ride off that momentum, but getting the things going is the hardest bit, as we've always seen with people.
Mm-hmm. And just building on that, once you do put your initial plans or routines in place, they might not be perfect, but there's no point worrying about that, because you won't know if they're perfect or not, or even good, until you actually action them. Once you have initial plans in place, action is required, and then you can use that action to then reflect on to see if more changes are needed. But I've seen so many times there's so much paralysis by analysis initially, just thinking, oh, shall I have that protein shake at this time, or should that be 25 grams here and then 20, like whatever it is, where in fact you just need to get going, and then you can just tweak things as you go if needed. But you can sit around tweaking it to this perfect thing on paper. Unless you just get that ball rolling, nothing's really going to happen.
Yeah, that's bang on. I think many people do fall into the trap of trying to overcomplicate it, I think the biggest mistake that we see is people trying to get too much variation within this nutrition plan or within these numbers from day dot. And as Akash just mentioned, you're better off just eliminating that whole decision tree and just sticking to very similar foods pretty much day in, day out. And again, it just eliminates a lot of unnecessary decision making for you, so you can just focus on the plan, execute, and then you can have more bandwidth to focus on other important things in your life. Okay. And knowing that your nutrition is sort of automated and it's just done, that's a huge stressor for most people. So that would be one of the biggest things that I would automate first up would be your nutrition as much as you can. But yeah, as your momentum gets going and as the wheels are turning and whatnot, then you can start to incorporate more variation. But to get things moving, stick to the same foods day in, day out that you enjoy, that fit within your numbers, and that are going to keep you moving towards your goal.
I think with nutrition, if you can spend that time right at the beginning to start that learning process of understanding what calories are, understanding what macros are, understanding what foods contain what, and overcome that initial resistance of how do I build this nutrition strategy for myself, then once you get past that, once you've created something that you're going to stick to, you can then set it and forget it. But you'll then be in a position where you'd have already empowered yourself to have a stronger understanding of nutrition compared to if you were just following a sort of a plan that you had no thinking or input into. And there's a lot to be said for getting a sort of calorie target, getting a macro target, and then thinking, I'm going to try and build this for myself, because it's a skill that none of us have been taught in our lives, nutrition. So that skill none of us we can end up going through life without actually knowing. Even if we seem to be healthy or seem to be fit, it's very few people actually understand nutrition. But so if you can empower yourself and educate yourself on this right at the beginning, then go into automation mode. There's a lot of power in that. Just building on the paralysis by analysis section, is once things do get moving and you're a couple of weeks in, you don't have to always think you need to be doing something different each week. There's this big perception that if you're not doing something different each week, you're not actually on a program, you're not actually on a plan, you're not actually doing anything that's worth doing, because you need to see more sort of tangible changes. But the reality is, if you're building your foundation and you're just getting things, you're doing everything you should be doing, you will be seeing changes. And all you need to do is just literally just carry on going. And if you're in a position where you don't need to make changes on a regular basis, that's actually a good thing. And that's something you should be happy with, and know that you are going through the process. You are engaging with the process. You just don't need to change anything. You just need to ride it out, and you need to continue building the foundation that you're building already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, Ed, you can attest to this. The amount of times we've had a few clients where we have given them their starting plans, and we didn't have to change a thing for like weeks or months sometimes, just because they would execute everything properly. And we've seen other people do that. They've constructed a plan for themselves that was in line with their goals, and they just executed consistently, and they didn't have to change a thing for a very long time. I think as you just mentioned, there's a lot of misconceptions in thinking that something has to be changing every week for the program to be a program, when no, changes should be there when they are necessary, meaning that if nothing has happened over the last fortnight and you've been 100% adherent and adamant to your goals, then yeah, a change can be warranted. But if you haven't, that would always be the first point of thing. That should always be the first thing you look at, is what can I do to improve my adherence? Have I been following everything to the T? If no, start following it and then see what happens. If yes, then you don't have to change anything. Just get back on plan. So yeah, it's a huge misconception, and unfortunately it's very, very hard to convince people otherwise.
Well, that's literally the biggest filter question. Have I been adherent? If not, go back to continuing the process. If you have been adherent and you haven't seen anything change in sort of 7 to 14 days or whatever the marker is you're using, then yeah, sure, make a change. If your goal is fat loss, then you may want to reduce your calories or increase your output, but don't do that if you haven't been adherent. And that's always the first. It's always the first filter.
Just real. I think it would be good to clarify, what does adherent mean?
Yeah. So if it's literally that checklist that we explained at the beginning, the non-negotiables. So are you in a calorie deficit that you set yourself? Have you maintained that calorie deficit consistently each day? Have you hit your steps each day? Have you trained consistently? Have you slept 7 to 8 hours each night? Have you drank 3 to 4 liters of water? The main ones there, I would say, especially for fat loss, would be nutrition and activity.
Yeah.
If those two have been nailed,
are you still measuring your food?
Yeah. Are you still measuring your food?
Yeah, and that's a huge one. That's the biggest one I see, is that people stop measuring their food after a week or two because they think they can just eyeball it. No, you can't eyeball it. Not yet. It takes a long time to develop that skill. So when you're in a process phase or in a fat loss phase, you want to be as precise as you can. That's the one phase throughout your entire transformation journey where precision and accuracy matter the most. Because once you get to that checkpoint, you've consolidated and you're investing. Yes, you don't have to be as sort of precise, et cetera, on the tracking everything component. But during this initial fat loss phase, yes, you do really have to turn that dial up when it comes to tracking and weighing and measuring. And part of the adherence checklist is, are you still weighing and measuring everything that you're consuming? Because if you're not, it's more than likely that you are overeating, or you're not eating or you're just not following your plan effectively. We've all been guilty of this, and we've all seen it happen a lot of the times.
I mean, I'm recalibrating my own peanut butter. So every porridge, I feel like I say this to you every couple of months, but my porridge bowl usually is 10 grams of peanut butter, but I'm noticing that's become 15 grams recently. So I just had to put it back on the scale, because sometimes you just want to you just eyeball the peanut butter. But I've just had to recalibrate that, and it's something we all do. Like every couple of months, we'll just recalibrate where we're at for those little things. But for things like, I think we've spoken about it before, where things like rice and oats, it's just so much easier than guessing, just actually putting it on the scale and just pouring it in, as opposed to thinking, I've got some sort of problem that I need to use a scale to weigh my food out.
It's not a problem. It's you learning a skill. It's learning a skill, just like driving a car. What's the analogy you like to make, Ed? There's another one that I think you like to use with regards to learning a skill. Could be guitar. The guitar. That's the one that you like. Learning how to play the guitar. You have to pay attention to every note initially, and because it's so new and you don't understand.
So initially you might have to be reading it off the paper, but once you're on investment phase, then potentially you can start playing without the alert in front of you.
That's a good one.
Ed's got the best analogies, by the way.
I had to dig deep into the mental analogy library.
Yeah. But again, it's think about this process phase as it's like an education process for you as well. You are learning about all these things. So you will have to do relatively unsustainable things to a point within this process phase for you to then be able to not be as super focused and super strict as most people like to say during the consolidation investment. But you put in the hours now and you put in the time now, so you can be a little bit more relaxed later on and not rebound and get to where you were 6 months ago.
Well, this is why we're starting to shift as a company, right? We're gonna, we'll explain more and more as we in the next coming months. But we're moving away from plans, spoon feeding, and we're moving towards education and empowerment more and more. And we were always there, but this is now amplified to a new level, because when you're just given the plan, or when you're just told what to do, it's great for the short term, but it doesn't do anything for the long term. It doesn't do anything for actually understanding, because people learn by doing. You can't learn by just understanding the theory. You have to learn by trying to do it yourself, understanding what the education is, and then learning from your mistakes or learning from your success. It's not going to happen if you're just told what to do all the time. And if we can get more and more society thinking, I want to empower, I want to learn how to take care of my health, I want to learn how to take care of my fitness in order to get rid of the results, because everyone wants to get the results, right? We're not, the results should always be there, right? People should be able to get into the shape of their life, should be able to do amazing things with their life, etc. But the process of getting there needs to be more about learning how to fish, learning the different levers and the tools and the details, so that when it comes to the long term, when it comes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the line, they're like, oh yeah, I've learned that before. I still know how to do these things. These new situations arrive. I've got new goals, but I know I have all the tools, the database to understand how to do what and when to do what. And that's really empowering. And I think for anyone, if we kind of bring it back to the focus of what we're discussing around the Big Willie challenge, is using that as an opportunity to doing it in a way where you actually are taking charge of your own journey, and being in the driver's seat of your own journey will really help set you up for what's to come after. Effectively, fat loss is simple. It's not easy. It's very simple, isn't it? It's a simple process of what we just described. Those 5 non-negotiables, build a system around it, manage your lifestyle around it, and then make changes where you need to until you get to the shape of your life. That's pretty much it if we were to break it down, right? But it's not easy, as we know. And what's even harder is what comes after, and actually making it a lifestyle. And I think one of the key commonalities of those who really make it a lifestyle long term is that active involvement, active engagement in the learning process from the get-go, and understanding that this is a way of life. This is an essential life skill that we all need, and this is something I enjoy doing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for a lot of people, is it going to be harder at the start, potentially having to learn things? Yeah, it is going to be harder. But as we were saying earlier, you put in the hard work now to learn how to fish, and you're going to be set for life. Remember, when you go fishing for the first time, it's not easy. Learning how to actually fish, that's really difficult. Versus just being given, hey, here's your fish, there you go, now you can eat. So that can work initially to be like, oh, that's great, I'm getting my fish, fantastic. But then, what happens when you're sort of out in the wild? So let's say gone to a restaurant, or you have like an impromptu visit to go somewhere, and you're like, oh, I'll have to email this person so they can tell me what to do here. What do I do? Because you haven't learned the skills on how to actually deal with social scenarios. You haven't learned what good nutrition is. You've only learnt follow this plan because I said follow the plan. And it's when those issues start to come up in life, and that's where you see the difference in people. You see the difference in people who have learnt the principles because they can go out comfortably and they can come back on Monday and be like, oh, I actually made a really good decision on the weekend because I just knew that I needed a protein source. I knew where to get my veggies from. I knew that I should go into the social event a little bit fuller, not starved, not trying to just starve myself all day. So you learn these things. So then you can make better decisions on your own without the need of someone telling you what to do. And that's the biggest key difference I've seen across the people who learn about this stuff and stay in shape for life versus the people who are just given a plan that they just blindly follow to their checkpoint. And then once they hit their checkpoint, things just go haywire because they haven't learnt the skills of staying in shape.
This is why when I hear I just want to get the results. Yeah, great, you're going to get the results, but you're going to do it in a way where you're going to keep them for life.
Yeah, that's big.
That's where I think approaching this Big Willie challenge needs to be viewed as that 12-week is a checkpoint or a milestone within your journey, but it's the start of this new thing rather than just I'm just going to blitz it for 12 weeks. Because I think another common thing that links in with what we said with the people who do well is that if you view it as a lifestyle change, then it's going to be something that's with you long term. If you just view it as I'm doing the Big Willie challenge, then I'll go back to normal life, get fat again 3 months later. Oh, I know, I'll try and redo what I did for that Big Willie challenge. Or people have these things where they've got this plan that they did before their wedding or their holiday, and it's like, oh, I got fat again, I'm just going to go back onto that. They don't know why it's this. A chicken breast is for lunch, or this is there. They just know, oh, that's what I got to do. That's the workout routine I got to do. And potentially they go back to it and it doesn't work because it was just a plan that suited them at that body weight and their lifestyle at that time, or whatever it was. Whereas if they just learned the principles, they could be like, oh, you know what actually helped me get in shape? Even if they did go off track and gain back weight, they could be like, you know what actually got me in shape before? It was you eating protein with every meal, and they can start using these principles and then apply them. Now, hopefully, if they know those principles, they won't go off track at all. But at least then they can actually use that to suit the situation they're in, rather than just having this sheet of paper that's like, oh no, meal 1 was this, meal 2 was that, and just carrying that around every 6 months.
Bang on. Let's bang on.
When you hit that top of the mountain, you're in the shape of your life. There's always a few options that you have. You can either go the rebound route or you can do it properly. Now, let's say you've got. You're at 12. You're at week 12 now, or whatever your timeline is you put. There's a few things you need to do here. The first thing is not go crazy mentally, because you're going to blow it. You can blow it in a week, right? You can literally gain 7 kilos in 7 days. I've done that before. I think Ed's done something similar, and we've heard countless stories of that happening. That always happens when you put too much. You put that checkpoint too much on a pedestal. If you take it off the pedestal, you can then think a bit more rationally about what you need to do now, because it's going to be hard, right? That initial consolidation period is going to be hard, and it's important that you understand it will be hard, because your hunger hormones are going to be all over the place. Your mind's going to be playing tricks with you, and we've got to slowly shift nutrition and calories slightly higher and move activity slightly lower to find your sort of sweet spot where everything feels good. But there's going to be a period of about 4 to 8 weeks, and it varies in everyone, where things will feel very weird, things will feel very hard, because you want to eat more than you have, and you'll hold on to this old image of like how lean you just were. if you can ride those 4 to 8 weeks out and do it in a slow, sustainable manner, then you can enter into that investment phase in a much stronger position. And you don't have to worry about dieting again. You don't have to worry about pulling back or mini cutting or anything like this. You can actually go into the investment phase like, okay, now I've gone past that danger zone. I'm going to either build as much muscle as I can, or I'm going to learn how to stay in this range of body weight where I feel my best, I look my best, and I perform at my highest level. And you can make that decision from a proactive position, as opposed to just reacting like, oh shit, I've just gained back all that weight I've lost. I need to now diet again. And this is that perpetual cycle that so many people fall into, and one that we need to break as a society. So effectively, health and fitness isn't a business, because this is what there shouldn't be this many solutions for losing body fat. In fact, I ran a poll on Instagram the other day, and I said, like, what are you working on? Fat loss or muscle building? Most people put fat loss. And then the next question was, is this the first time you've worked on fat loss in the last 3 years? 75% of people said no. I mean, 75% of people are dieting again in the last 3 years. And I can't imagine it being like, because our audience isn't bodybuilders and people that regularly do physique stuff. So it's not going to be strategically done, is it? It's 75%
exactly.
dieting again, probably for a reason they didn't want to diet again for. And we've got to break that as a society. And it comes back to, like we said, education and empowerment, but also just understanding where the phases are, what are the problems and challenges that come with it, and actually developing the mental and emotional skill set to handle all the different signals that are going to be firing at you at different points.
I think that's where taking that initial 4 to 8 weeks post checkpoint seriously and viewing it as a valuable part of the process will not only allow you to not diet again unless kind of you want to, but it won't force you into for health reasons or because you gained up so much fat again. But it'll also put you in such a better position. Like if you just go crazy and straight off that checkpoint, you might have a bit more fun for that first week or two. But even beyond the physical bit, the mental relationship you're then going to have with food, your own body image, and I can speak from experience, is terrible. And from when I look back, when I consolidated badly, the impact it had on me mentally, but especially in terms of relationship with food, but also in terms of exercise, was way worse than even the physical. Like within 3 months, I was back at the body weight I was at before. So, physically, it was very unsuccessful, but mentally, I think it was even worse. And so even if it is, I've been pushing so hard for the last 12 weeks, I just want to relax. Like if you can keep that going and see that as a valuable part of the process as well, you'll be in such a better position, because blowing out for the 2 weeks might seem fun. You're going to be in a terrible position and likely mentally in a worse position, less healthy position than when you first started potentially.
I mean, in the book, I talk about riding the tip of the mountain. You got the period just before the grind, and you got the period coming out of consolidation. If you can nail that bit, you can nail the grind where you push yourself as hard as you can, and then you nail the consolidation where you have to handle all the demons that are coming at you in your mind, and you nail that sort of period of, it'll probably be anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks. You come out of it so much better mentally, physically, and emotionally. Like that's where I think people get most of the life-changing benefit, because they not only taken themselves to an extreme, but they've battled all their bodily instincts coming out of it. Your body wants you to eat. Your body wants you to do nothing, and you're like, nah, I'm cool. Like I'm in control here. That when you can execute the level of control on that, you can execute control on anything in your life.
That's 100% bang on, and I think this is where the crux of it really comes down to, is that the character you become and the person that you become within that phase, like within those final few weeks, and then the final weeks coming out, because that in and of itself can potentially be more character building, because you don't have a shiny object to aim for now. Now you have to exert this control, but understand that there is no like photo shoot, or there is no people being like, well done, well done, well done. Now this is now up to you to control all these, as you said, urges to eat, urges to do less, to just whatever. You yourself again have to not fight that, but you do have to work with it, and you have to look deep within. You have to, and it makes you very focused on what you need to do for yourself. I think I've said this before, is that period of the grind, and then even coming out of it, that is where you realize what's important to you. That's what you realize where you want your life to be, et cetera, et cetera. I know this sounds us talking like metaphysical and whatnot, but there is true. I think most people that have gone into that extreme, they will all say the same thing. They will all say that the person I became going into that I was a different person coming out, compared to what they were like a year ago. It's revolutionary. And this is why we talk about the physical being the vehicle. That's what we mean by it, because you do that, you come out safely, you can do anything. You know what I mean? It's a really fantastic life skill to be able to push yourself to that extreme, but then come out under control and then continue moving forward.
So bang on with the consolidation, because coming out of under control is also helps you identify a lot of your previous crutches. Like you said, there's no more shiny object. And so now when you're bored and you haven't done anything about that life bit that you're bored in, you got the two choices. Are you going to nail the biscuit tin, or are you going to actually just sort out what's going on? Because there is no like photo shoot, there is no wedding to get ready for. It's like, actually, let me just sort my life out. So that's why the grind is nothing without the consolidation. The grind without the consolidation is just like, yeah, cool, you did that. It's nothing great. Like, anyone can do that. Can you actually get in? Can you go through that? Because I think the other thing is more of a grind. And
it is.
It's hard because suddenly you're like, everyone's like, yeah, social occasions. Oh, you've done your shoot now. When you come out, all these sorts of things start firing at you. You haven't got an excuse anymore. It's like, what are you actually going to do in that environment? Are you going to go back to drinking 10 pints a night, or are you going to say, no, I'm actually, this is a lifestyle for good. I'm just going to have one and I'm cool.
This is where the introspection action thing, I think, is so, because we say both parts are so important, but the grind is almost like the introspection, because though you're getting physical action, you haven't got the energy or the capacity to actually implement all these things. You're getting all these learnings because you're restricting yourself in so many areas. These crutches are again highlighted. You see these potential issues. But then as you go into consolidation, activity comes down, food starts to increase. You're going to have more energy and more headspace, more time, and just mental and physical capacity to deal with these things. Now it's like you've had the introspection, you've reflected on these things, you've got the energy to actually action them. So it's like, all right, I've realized I'm being taken advantage of. I'm not being proactive enough in what I want or whatever it is. You've realized that in the grind, but then in consolidation, you have the energy to actually be like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do to stop that being the case. This is how I'm going to take control of situations more. This is how I want to be perceived, or whatever it is. And so, as we say, introspection means nothing without action. The grind means nothing without, actioning it in consolidation.
The grind just gives you those glimpses. It's just like glimpses of the future of what your life could be like. And I'd say consolidation is like, you're starting to think, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. It all comes together really in investment. And the investment, we talk about rewiring on mindset, behavior, and identity. All of that is literally all the insights you've had so far. It's like, okay, now I'm actually going to put it to work. And if you don't put it to work, you end up just back where you were at the beginning, and just someone who might be obsessed with their physical body, but actually made no real change in their life. And that's why, if you treat the investment phase, when you treat this like a way of life, you're constantly in repeated cycles of introspection and action, and you're constantly making improvements in your life because you're always under audit. You're always thinking, what can I do? How can I tinker with this? How can I improve that? What do I need to filter out? What do I need to change? And you're always making the changes because you have the energy to do so on a regular basis. But if if you don't pair it up with action, then it's just a nice thing you did once in your life.
And on that note, you just reminded me, can you imagine the mental bandwidth that is going to give you once you're finally in the shape of your life and you have all these other things in control? You literally do not have to diet ever again. You literally do not have to worry about your body anymore. But do you know how amazing that feeling can be for so many people? And it's because of that, you now are not obsessing about your body anymore. You're not obsessing about the next diet. You're not obsessing about this, because you just are in shape for life. And now you can tackle so many other more important things in your life. That's what we mean by the physical being the vehicle. Being in shape, having abs, looking great is literally the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this whole thing. It's what you do after that. That's what really matters. And if you can eliminate the whole concept of having to always be dieting and having to put so much mental power into dieting and this and that, you are just you have so much more potential to allocate those resources to everything else. And I think that's a very underrated thing that most people don't realize, because all of us, we don't have to overly think about these things anymore, right? And now we ourselves can contribute to a greater purpose. We can do better work. We can do better everything, because that's just in the back burner. That's automated. We don't have to worry about it. It's just there. That's huge.
You can start diving more into self-exploration here as well. When your body's in control, you can start really like unpicking the roots of your past, how you want to shape things, looking, getting more into your emotional well-being, your mental well-being. We talk about the pillars of health. Like physical is the foundation. If you've got your physical anchor locked, you can then start exploring your emotional, mental, social, spiritual health and move up the levels. But without that physical backbone, it becomes very difficult. And what you end up finding is in the future is that anything that may be going on wrong higher up the levels always manifests itself physically. For example, like if you've got some emotional issue going on in your life, it'll always end up manifesting physically. Whether, like for me, for example, it's always the skin, but for other people, it may be that eating behaviors go off, or I don't know, injuries, or whatever it may be. Your body weight suddenly starts going up, and it's like, well, why did that happen? Oh, because I haven't taken care of that emotional issue, and I've been eating because of it to dampen that crunch, and etc. So the physical is such a good like scoreboard, almost like for your overall health, because I think we all believe that the body is a representation of the mind, and the body is a good, essentially, I like the word scoreboard for where you're at with everything else in your life. How in control you are with your body is a good symbol for everything else.
And just to clarify that, because people will misconstrue this, they go, "Oh, what? So you got to be just shredded year round because that's what the pinnacle of health is." It's like, no, we're not saying that.
No,
we're saying that when your physical health is in order and you're running optimally physically, whatever that means for you, everything else can just build from that. It's very, very hard. I think I've mentioned this before. Jordan Peterson's a perfect example of this. When his physical health was completely wrecked, he could not contribute his great knowledge and his extreme intellect to society anymore because he was just bedridden. So that was like wasted intellect and fantastic insights for over a year. He's great. He's back now and he's fantastic, but he credits that to his physical health rejuvenating and feeling better than ever. And now he can just get his message out and he can help the world in a much better way because his physical health is back up to where it needs to be. So it just goes to show you how important that physical element is, because without it, you can't contribute nothing, which is really sad.
You're literally rewiring your brain chemistry every time you're optimizing your physical health, aren't you? So, and the more you do that, whether it's through good nutrition, whether it's through training, activity, sleep, hydration, all of these things are only going to optimize what's going on in your head, your brain, your emotional health, your response to stress. Everything gets better when you're physically in shape. And like I even said, it's not the shredded, it's the sweet spot. It's the sweet spot you got to find. And that's another reason why the consolidation is so important, because if you master consolidation, you can use the investment phase to find that sweet spot, as opposed to just settling on a sweet spot because you've rebounded. You can actually strategically find where you feel your absolute best cognitively, mentally, performance-wise, everything. And when you settle into that sweet spot, that's where the magic happens. And that's where your anchor is. And it's probably not going to be your leanest. It's going to be something different. But that's the benefit of having that physical anchor. And that's the benefit of riding that tip of the mountain really, really well.
So bang on. And it's completely separate from aesthetics, by the way. I just want people to realize that, because I know people put words in our mouth and it's going to piss me off because the physical is the vehicle and the physical is the foundation for everything that comes on top of that. That is our bias. Deal with it.
Truth. So if we circle back to the Big Willie challenge, I think we've covered everything you need to know about doing it. If you're gonna do it, I think it's a great incentive to get involved with. The key is, as we just said, nail the structure, nail your non-negotiables, make changes when you need to, get into the shape of your life, but most importantly, do the hard work that comes from that top weight.